The year is 1997. Colonel Uyrange Hollanda is about to come clean about a top-secret project that took place 20 years earlier. This project involved investigating numerous UFOs that tormented the men and women of Colares in Brazil for years. This wasn't just an encounter, it was an invasion. Those affected were visited in the night, their homes infiltrated with technology beyond their comprehension, their bodies experimented on, their blood sucked straight from their veins. The situation got so out of control that Hollanda was put on the case in what is now known as Operation Prato, aka Operation Saucer. The only problem with that was those UFOs would end up paying him a visit too. What happened to the victims along with Hollanda? And most importantly, what were these UFOs and what were they truly capable of? Well, let's look at some of the terrifying encounters, case by case, along with the inception of Operation Prato, and figure out if something so heinous, so disturbing, could happen again. Stick around because this scare mail starts right now. The stars shine brighter in the dark wilderness of the Amazon. Located on the northern side of the River Delta region, Colares and its inhabitants are regularly greeted by a sky full of stars. There's no light pollution in these parts, just the vast cosmos at your fingertips. I mean, who needs a TV when you got a view like this? A view so pristine yet commonplace that you learn each and every dot shining back at you. But on this particular night in 1977, a young woman by the name of Aurora Fernandez was relaxing in her hammock when she saw a light she had never seen before. For starters, it was surprisingly small, about the size of a tin can, flying unusually low as it danced in and out of the tree line, flashing various colors. It descended towards her, inching closer and closer before shooting out a red beam of light. And just like that, she was struck in the neck. An intense burning sensation occurred, followed by what she described as 3 rapid sucks. A chill quickly overcame her. Despite being conscious, she couldn't move or even scream. It was as if the life was being siphoned from her very body. She struggled to flee, but instead became dizzy and fell to the ground unconscious.
Fui ficando fraca, eu caí, fui ficando fraca. Eu caí.
Caiu no chão.
Caí, aí eu perdi o sentido. Aí já tornei já no hospital.
Aurora was rushed to the hospital. Her parents demanded an explanation for her terrible state, but the doctors had none. She had what appeared to be lesions all over her body, mainly on her chest, neck, and arms. For weeks, Aurora battled anemia, fatigue, and paralysis. When she was finally able to speak, she described a chemical-like smell emitting from the object, almost ethereal. Of course, this baffled the medical professionals caring for Aurora. Her symptoms reflected rapid blood loss, but they simply couldn't explain how such a thing was possible with no open wounds. Word quickly spread across Colares. They started to call them chupa-chupas, or the suckers. Most villagers lit bonfires in the streets to ward them away at night. Others hid in their homes for fear of being next. But little do they know there was nowhere to hide, because one of the other victims was attacked in her very own bedroom. Gilda was lying down one night staring at the ceiling, desperately trying to fall asleep despite the anxiety. The past few nights had been stressful. The thought of being attacked by an unknown force in her sleep was all she could think about. But as Gilda was finally drifting off to slumberland, she saw it. A red beam of light penetrating the roof of her home. Before she even had a chance to react, Gilda's blood was being drained from her body. Her symptoms were exactly the same. The smell of ether filled her nostrils. She was weak and fatigued. She could barely speak and was bedridden, defenseless. In most UFO cases, this is where the sightings end and the cover-ups begin. But not in this bizarre tale. In fact, the encounters would not only increase in numbers, but in severity as well. Donna Beatriz was in her home surrounded by family when the exact same thing happened. A red beam of light penetrated her roof and zapped her. She described the feeling of being electrocuted, followed by the chill of blood loss. Her kids screamed as she fell to the ground, convulsing as she laid nearly paralyzed. She used her last bit of strength to call to her sister, who lived next door, and once she arrived, she found nothing but her sibling in an abysmal state. The town of Colares became increasingly aware of the ongoing threat, but despite their caution, the attacks grew worse. Abel Suarez was relaxing in his home while listening to the radio one evening when, you guessed it, a ray of light penetrated his roof. The light pierced him just like the others. Like a spider's venom, the beam slowly paralyzed Abel. He screamed for help, but was shocked when only silence came from his mouth. His head pounded, bursting with pain from a sudden migraine. After the terrifying incident, Abel was incapacitated for days. Almost a week later, Raimundo Francisco was walking home with a bag of groceries late in the night along the highway. Fear had gripped the region, but not Raimundo, who casually strolled while smoking on a cigarette as he enjoyed his peaceful walk home. His serenity was quickly interrupted, though, when he saw a bright yellow light coming towards him. At first, he thought it was merely a pair of headlights coming down the road, until beams of blue light shot out in all directions from what he called the apparatus. Raimundo dropped his belongings and quickly fled into the woods, hiding amongst a large settlement of palm trees. He slowly peered out from within them to see something shocking. The mysterious UFO buzzing, almost like the sound of bees emanating from it, as its blue beams scanned the surrounding area. Eventually, it flew away in the direction of the village, but even after it left, Raimundo remained there, weak, numb, and deathly afraid. With growing hysteria, only one thing was certain. The people of Colares were under attack. Fearing no one was coming to their aid, people of the region armed themselves to the teeth. One of those individuals was Manuel Matos, a farm worker residing in Colonia Campo Cerrado. As he was ending his long day tending to his crops, Manuel witnessed a blue light hovering above the tree line. He quickly grabbed his rifle and fired at it, but to his surprise, nothing happened. Suddenly, a red beam of light shot out from within it and struck him. A jolt of electricity funneled through his body before he fell to the ground, paralyzed. As he lost consciousness, the last thing Manuel saw was the ominous light descending towards him. Colares was only the beginning. Attacks were occurring all across northern Brazil, spanning from Manaus to São Luís. The mayors had had enough. They complained to the government that they had come under attack with no military aid. So, after this outrage, a task force was created to document and investigate these so-called UFOs. Uyrange Hollanda received a phone call while relaxing one afternoon in Sao Paulo. He's told to pack his bags. Operation Prato is a go. The Brazilian Air Force's response isn't what you'd expect. They didn't send an army, just a handful of people, Hollanda and 6 sergeants. They weren't armed with jets, guns, or any kind of weapon really, just cameras, tape recorders, and theodolites, a tool used for measuring angles. If what the villagers were saying was true, their weapons probably wouldn't have worked anyway. Before they could combat them, they needed to understand them first. So Hollanda and his team set up shop every night to see if they could capture evidence of these craft. And to their surprise, they showed up almost immediately. In total, the team captured over 500 pictures of at least 9 different craft, all varying in size, some incredibly large, some incredibly small. The biggest one being a supposed mothership in the shape of a football settled in the skies off the coast of Marajo Bay. The smaller ones were strangely intelligent and nefarious. They'd actively avoid Hollanda and his team, opting only to come out once they packed up and left for the night. Some of the mid-sized vessels even had what appeared to be 2 humanoid pilots within them. The team was stunned. It was obvious they were dealing with some sort of intelligence, an intelligence far more capable than their own. After examining the negatives of the images, Hollanda and his crew discovered that these UFOs were all draped with mysterious black lines. Whether they were anti-gravity lines or antimatter, these vessels didn't play by our rules. You know, the rules of the known universe, the laws of physics. Nowhere was safe. Hollanda claimed they knew where he and his men were at all times. They were able to pass through walls as if nothing was there, and even blip in and out of reality. Hollanda witnessed this himself when one of the supposed craft paid him a visit. One night while visiting home for the holidays, Uyrange woke up in a daze. He heard the popping sound of electricity at the foot of his bed, but when he opened his eyes, he was already standing up. In front of him was a short humanoid dressed in some sort of suit. He couldn't make out its face, like it was distorted or blurred out. He tried to move, but he couldn't. He felt someone behind him restraining him. Whoever or whatever it was told him not to panic, that they weren't going to hurt him. He started to feel drowsy as the blurred being approached him. And then, Hollanda awoke the following morning traumatized. When he asked his wife what she remembered about the terrifying encounter, she had no idea what he was even talking about. He assumed it must have been a dream, stress from the abnormal case he'd been working on, until he noticed his arm. Hollanda found a metal implant atop his forearm. For what, he had no clue. This was sobering for Uyrange. He realized these entities could do what they wanted, when they wanted, and horrifically, their intentions were unknown. His team weren't the hunters in this scenario, they were the hunted. This terrifying realization left him with no choice. It was time to call for backup. So, Uyrange Hollanda returns to Colares to gather all their evidence. After 4 months of observations, Hollanda's team handed over their findings to the Air Force. But, surprisingly, no job well done was given. No reinforcements were issued. Instead, Brigadier Potasio Lopez de Oliveira, the base commander in Belém, ordered Hollanda to turn over all evidence, equipment, and to pack up and leave. Operation Saucer was no more. For nearly 20 years, Uyrange lived with the weight of Operation Prato on his shoulders. It's unfinished business keeping him up at night. Even if he wanted to come clean, no one would believe him. That is, until a colossal alien encounter takes the country by storm in 1996 in Varginha. You can watch everything about that incident in this video linked here. It's a good one, trust me. An alien craze grips the nation following Varginha. So in 1997, Hollanda decided to finally come clean about Operation Saucer. It was from this very interview that the country learned of everything, and thanks to Varginha, the country believed him. There was a problem though. Hollanda warned that he would likely be killed for coming forward, which is exactly what happened. Just 2 weeks after he gave this interview, Uyrange Hollanda was found hung in his own home with the cord of his robe tied tightly around his neck. His death was ruled a suicide. But the mysterious deaths didn't end there. Almost everyone on Hollanda's team died under mysterious circumstances. Those that didn't disappeared without a trace. Their tragic end would not be in vain, though. Thanks to Hollanda's bravery, AJ Javerde, a UFOologist in Brazil, started a Freedom of Information campaign for the military to release the files on Operation Prato. And with the eyes of the nation on the government about this very topic, the military obliged and released a majority of the files to investigators and UFOologists in 2005.
And it actually happened. The three objectives were fulfilled. And actually, it happened when this gentleman, which was the commander of the Operation Saucer, my late friend, Colonel Uyrange Hollanda, had an actual close encounter with a human-like EBE, us from there up, us from other planets, because they are just like us. They have 2 legs, 2 arms, a body, a neck, a head, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. They are just like us.
Not only did the Air Force recognize the threat of UFOs, they even tracked them as far back as 1954. So for those of you in my comments constantly complaining about UFOs only being seen in America, you could not be more wrong. And for those of you that want me to debunk something, I'm sorry to say that there's nothing to debunk. The story's legit. Too many witnesses, too much evidence. There were hundreds of victims I didn't even have time to go over, mainly because the same thing happened to all of them. They were hunted, paralyzed, and drained of their blood. 1 second. Let's just ignore that for now. Anyway, the only discrepancy I could find is that Operation Prato wasn't shut down in December of 1977. There was just a changing of the guard. Camilo Ferraz de Barros came clean in 2013, nearly 40 years later, claiming that he took over after Hollanda and his team were discharged from the operation. He confirmed just about everything Iran claimed. Well, everything except the giant mothership, that is. But that doesn't mean it didn't exist, just that he didn't witness it. But he did see almost everything else. His operation continued through 1980, although there was much less action while he was around, something he himself admitted. But this gives us even more validation that Operation Prato did happen. That being said, Operation Saucer was quite some time ago, and to be honest, sounds pretty damn terrifying. But could something like this happen in today's world? Would we even allow something like this to happen again? Well, if you're familiar with my earlier videos, it already did happen.
I wanted to ask you about drones. We had the issue in New Jersey before the election where there are all these people thought UFOs or an attack of the killer drones. And I believe you're doing something about.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I know I can't tell you who it was and what it was, but yeah. I can't really tell you. I'd love to tell you actually, but it's not a big deal.
So, as you can see, we have no more control over our skies now as we did back then. The only difference? The Brazilian Air Force admits when they're outmatched. The US Air Force just ignores it and hopes you'll ignore it too, which is way, way worse. Could this happen today? That shouldn't even be a question at this point. Our government has been letting it happen for half a century, and they're letting it happen even now. A lot can be seen in the skies above nowadays. There's evidence of it everywhere, and whether you believe it to be real or not is up to you, but the evidence is there. And if you choose to ignore this as a real threat, then I don't blame you. Ignorance is bliss after all, but I will say this. You better hope the same UFOs from Colares don't show up at your doorstep, because chances are, the US military isn't gonna protect you. If you're lying on the ground, drained of blood, barely clinging to life, they're not gonna send you off to the hospital. They're gonna finish the job.
Hey, it's Andrew. Sorry, but I've been abducted. Ooh. Catch me at the beep.
Hey, buddy. Man in Black here. How's my favorite disinfo agent doing? Seems like you've been ignoring my calls. Is this because I haven't paid you yet? Sorry, Doge really messed things up, but we just defunded Medicare, so we might be able to send you some money soon. Me again. You know who. Mr. MIB. Heh. Listen, you've, kinda hurt my feelings a little. I thought our relationship was about more than just money, you know? I was really feeling like we were a team, you and I. Two government shills against the world. Corbell and Elizondo have been a little clingy lately. Kinda made me appreciate how independent you were. Anyway, call me back, please.
Good day, mate. It's me, Ross Coulthard. I'm lighting up your Barbie because I have an exceptional story I'd like to fill you in on. Unfortunately, I misplaced my cell phone somewhere down under, so if you need to ring my telly, you'll have to phone your buddy the Man in Black. It's really urgent and of the utmost importance. It'll be a News Nation exclusive, so you're gonna want to call him back as soon as possible. That's MIB in your contact list. M as in Majestic 12, I as in Ickley-Moore, and B as in Bermuda Triangle. Talk to you soon. I'm Australian.